right. So welcome to the Center for Applied AI, our lunchbox or lunch and learn webinar. We call it both. I want to remind everybody to please mute your microphones as you join so that we don't interfere with the speaker. My name is Ed Mellick. I'm the Director of Business Development and Responsible AI for the Center. I'm going to introduce today's speaker shortly, but first I want to give a quick word about who we are and what we do. The Center for Applied AI is part of UMBC Training Centers. We are a DC, Baltimore-based nonprofit, and the Center for Applied AI provides a whole host of AI-related services. They include, you can see on the screen, a number of things. The big part of that is professional education and development. We offer classes focused on AI and leadership, AI and a whole host of technical topics, things like machine language and data science with Python, cybersecurity, and AI. We focus on responsible AI as it relates to the federal government. If you go to the QR code to the right and go to our website, you'll see a whole list of classes that you can take. We also provide consulting services. We have a handful of people on staff who have worked with major consulting firms and on their own and everything in between. So we'll do AI strategy sessions with our clients. We'll do implementation support to implement the outcome of those strategy sessions. And we also have an innovation lab. And finally, we have the technical lab. We do a lot of research and experimentation on a number of interesting topics. One of them that's very near and dear to me is some research we've done over the past few months on deepfake detection platforms. And in 2 weeks, we're going to be giving a lunch webinar on that. So just a little snapshot. If you'd like to contact us, please reach out to us at info@c4ai.ai. So now for today's presentation. We're joined by Joe Tebow. He's the founder and CEO of a company called Cursive Technology. And he's going to be talking about a rather novel approach that uses AI to promote integrity in the writing process rather than simply using AI to say, hey, this is generated AI technology or not. So Joe, first of all, thank you for joining us. And please take it away. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and then hand it over to you.
Okay. Hopefully everybody can see.
Co-branded. Yep, looks good, Joe. Looks good.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for that. The QR code here, if you want to follow along, there are some links and other things in the presentation, which I know are not necessarily clickable in a Zoom presentation, but this will give you access, I think, to the presentation that you're seeing here, where you can follow along and kind of access it at will. So the presentation that I had pitched for UMBC Training Center for Applied AI was that, in my view, we really need to rethink our relationship with writing in the AI era. And what does that mean from, specifically, I'm going to come at this with an academic lens, is that in schools, what do we do about this? And having attended the in-person meetup a couple weeks ago, where we were talking about critical thinking and kind of there was considerable hand-wringing, I think, in the audience and by the presenters, is that we're kind of unsure, and it doesn't appear that there's a simple solution to this problem. Now, I'm biased. I think there is a simple solution. I'll get to what I think that is in this presentation. But first, you should probably know like why you should, or why I am here, and what type of pedigree am I bringing to the table. So first and foremost, I am a 3-time founder. One made me a thousandaire with an exit from a media site. So was fun and exciting. Did it on a part-time. I also was employee number 4 for Baltimore-based Straighterline, which is probably one of the kind of shining stars for ed tech acquisitions in the area. But as you know, and as many people probably on this audience know, that Baltimore has like a very long and well-trodden path for ed tech companies, with Laureate, with AlloView, with a number of others, just like really, really phenomenal companies that have been focused here, Moodle Rooms, eThink, and a number of others. That are just really kind of speak to education technology as one of the fundamental kind of components of our economy here locally. I'm proud to be part of that with Cursive, and I am very recently a UMD MBA grad, finished up last August, and proud to be a Terp as well. Though my first love will always be University of Vermont, Catamounts, Go Cats. So that is a little bit about me. I, at Straighterline, had a lot of experience running kind of scaled online college level courses, and specifically writing courses, which is very much where I got the experience that has kind of led me to this place today, which is once upon a time, kind of we were set up, we used to be, they would staple, you print out your paper or take it out of your typewriter, staple it together, bring it to your professor directly. In the last 20 years plus, that has been kind of intermediated by computers. So we would submit through email, or you're submitting through a learning management system, really creating kind of the connectedness between student and teacher being a computer interface. And then it came the magic button, right? And by magic button, I mean text generation that is original, simple, sometimes free. It's all of the generative AI tools that are now available. It is generally coming directly to where students are actually doing their writing. So in this case, I'm showing a screenshot from an assignment in a learning management system, but I have Grammarly Premium, and Grammarly Premium gives me a magic button directly in the interface where I am now able to write. So I can prompt essentially anywhere that I have to submit writing. And that is what has really changed this aspect of it. So, despite I have a prompt here, are you a risk taker? It could have been, what are the causes of World War I? It could have been a specific math problem. It could have been anything, but you can basically use the same interface to answer that question using generative AI, because the magic button has now become ubiquitous. Now, that's on your phone, it's in your email, you can do it through apps. I can basically get an AI to generate text, as you know, any place that I need to do it. So the ubiquity of the magic button and the ability to create text has obviously changed things for us. Right. And now, even, on some of your computers, you may look down and you may even see that there is a physical magic button on your computer to basically generate text or to prompt AI to do whatever it is that you will need to do, including writing emails, writing assignments, writing papers directly from your keyboard. Right. So we're shifting into this thing where this is it's not just part of the interface anymore. This is actually like a physical construct, part of your workflow that's everywhere, right? So that certainly has changed kind of our relationship to writing in general. Now, this has culminated over the last probably 24 months, a little bit less than that, with ChatGPT. And we basically have said, like, the college essay is dead. The essay in general is dead. Writing is no longer can be used as assessment, all of these other things, which is, to me, disheartening, because writing is such an effective and historically important way that we're able to understand what people are thinking, what their capabilities are. But the nature of a magic button and the quality of output from AI has definitely kind of has changed the stakes of those things. So now that AI is basically everywhere all the time, what do we do? And right, so the thing that I would posit, and you can see, is he got real unhappy because the computer grew a brain. Now, what do we do? Right now, for those who know, what you could know is that actually this idea of writing being broken now because of generative AI is a little bit of a false flag. There's been problems with detection and authorship for decades, right? Right now, we question whether a student has written the paper because AI is essentially available everywhere. But the way that we've collected writing in assessments for higher education or even high school has basically severed the tie between the student and their writing long ago, right? And so you have this kind of parallel dirty little secret in higher education and in education in general, is that we actually never really knew that students were doing the writing, right? They could have had their mom do it. They could have bought it from an essay mill. And so for the last 2.5 decades or so, there's been a groundswell of kind of research into this idea of authorship and where writing is coming from when we suspect that it's not the student doing it, right? And so I want to be clear here is that this problem of knowing whether a student had done the writing or how much of the writing that they've done has been around long before ChatGPT, right? And it's been exacerbated by a couple different things. One is the explosion of the internet has created lots of opportunities for me to just go and search for an essay mill to write my paper, right? I don't have to go. A magic button is a great solution now, but prior to that, I could just go to Google and I could look for somebody on the web to do this work for me. It's estimated that was like 15% of students with ChatGPT. There's some research that says that cheating rates have actually not risen, but there certainly are lots of lack of confidence. There are all sorts of other issues extraneous to this where teachers suspect usage may be much higher. And because of a flux in the different policies that schools will have, it's really hard to kind of put a finger on how much of this is actually impacted by ChatGPT and how much. But in a sense, I want to be clear is that this problem has existed. This issue of not knowing whether students have done their writing is not caused by ChatGPT. It's just simply that put a huge spotlight on the problems that have been apparent here. Interestingly, COVID really, I think, was the nail in the coffin for shifting us to a submission process that generally kind of severed the student or the provenance of, or the chain of custody that's required to know whether a student has done the writing or not. I've done a lot of research into essay mills. The thesis for Cursive and kind of the technology that we're using is predicated on the fact that we were trying to attack essay mill usage, which is something like $4 billion per year just in the English language only. About 15% of students suspected of using contract cheating sites or essay mills for their assignments, and that's across the board. That's kind of internationally. It's not I would say is like even at the most prestigious universities, it's a non-zero factor, and it's largely undetectable, right? Now layer in ChatGPT, it's clear that people are starting to notice that we have a deficiency in being able to tie student writing to the actual student, right? So these are very well linked in my mind, and hopefully I'm happy to answer additional questions about these, but the problem is we don't know what students know because we don't have a good way to collect that data. Now, if we change how we're structured in terms of the submission process, and if we consider that the computer is now a tool that students are able to use, how do we tie or how do we change this relationship and bring the student closer to the professor? And I'm going to posit a couple different things. One is that we can use policy and prevention, right? So we can educate people about how and what tools we're using, and we can have more proactive guidelines for working through these things. We can use detection tools, AI classifiers, plagiarism detection tools, stuff like that. We can use monitoring tools, right? So we can and tactics. We could have all classroom writing happen in the classroom. We could have all writing happen in proctored examinations, web-based or face-to-face. There's all sorts of other things that we can do. We can do vivas instead, right? So an oral presentation rather than actually collecting a written product, or we can have it all presentation-based, right? And many courses and many institutions already have some of these things layered into their assessment processes, but writing still continues to be an important gauge of student knowledge, and often is kind of one of the artifacts that might be submitted alongside oral presentations or any of the other means of assessment. So from a prevention standpoint, right, we're talking about policy, agreements, academic integrity, honesty codes and honor codes. We can do mini lessons to kind of educate students towards what plagiarism is or what appropriate uses of AI are. There are some really great AI assessment scales, which are proactive ways to kind of signal to students what level of AI should be used or would be considered as cheating. You can provide all sorts of different things in terms of including the overview of the different tools that are used for detection of AI or plagiarism detection. Those are great preventative measures. If students understand like how their papers are going to be considered, that's a great way to solve some of those problems. This is one example of AI assessment scale in terms of how we can proactively signal to students what should be allowed. Now, the problem with these is largely that actually verifying that these have been adhered to, that's the difficulty, right? The current problem is whether and if AI detection tools are applicable, whether they work, whether they are acceptable on campus from a bias perspective or anything like that. And there's a kind of growing chorus of educators really trying to discount the use of AI classification tools. Personally, I do know and do think that they work, but they are easily defeated, right? They're simple prompting, simple obfuscation tools, simple techniques that students you can learn on Reddit, you can learn basically anywhere. There's tons of different sites that are coming up, and there are probably 30 or 40 different AI cheating assistance tools to circumvent those AI detectors as well. There's also, here's a couple of the most well-known AI detection tools that are offering these things. They basically work by measuring which otherwise are like human attributes of the writing, but they're comparing it to basically LLMs and other parts of that output. You can also monitor, right? So you could watch me take an exam right now, and if you could see my screen also, you would probably have high confidence that I'm doing that writing. But it's costly. You can do oral presentations and other presentations and other things in class, as I mentioned. Now, what I think is a better answer is biometrics. Now, so when we talk about biometrics, where you probably are using a biometric daily, either to unlock your phone using your face or through your fingerprint. On Maryland campus, you palm print in to get your food, right? So if you want to go get chicken tenders at lunchtime, you can use your palm to basically pay for the fees to get into the dining hall. There's voice recognition, iris recognition, facial recognition. You can recognize people by their gait. And what I think is most interesting is that you can recognize users by typing, right? So how you type on a keyboard is a biometric signature, and that's been largely recognized for almost 40 years, right? Probably more longer than that. In 1980, the first record that I was able to find is from a RAND corporation, basically verifying that, hey, how we type on typewriters and how we type on computer keyboards, if we are able to track that information, we can verify the writer by the cadence, the kind of the behavior of their typing practice. And if we think of that enlists the user directly. The student becomes participant in the creation of a track record of authorship and integrity. So the key from a really simple perspective is actually you, right? So you as a participant in the creation process are verifying integrity over time, right? So this is kind of flipping the script on how we consider what is writing, what is integrity, and who is responsible for providing that type of information or that type of signaling to an institution. Right now, academic integrity is largely top down, right? We use detection tools. You are privy, you're responsible to adhere to the policies that are put in place at the institutional level. Whereas if you use something like typing biometrics, it is more, I actually think the student is more of the participant, right? They have to be willing to raise that bar, but the students can do so in ways to combat and to basically take a stance. As like, there's a widely used, but I'm not hugely popular. I'm not hugely fan of it. It's like cheaters only cheat themselves. I would say that's not true, right? As a student perspective, cheaters in my class are degrading my experience, right? So if we want to raise the bar and to increase integrity, it gives us a whole bunch of more information to verify that the student has actually done the writing, and we consistently can know that it is the same student and the person enrolled to do that. So the way that it works is basically it's looking at the distance and timing between key presses, right? So it is key logging, which I know has some negative baggage that comes along with it, mostly because it steals your password, right? But what I want to impose upon you and hope that you get is that you are the password, right? That you are creating it every time that you are doing the writing. And I hope that you're using a password manager rather than memorizing it or keeping your passwords on a Post-it note. So like we're not stealing your password. We are using biometrics to verify you, identity verification over time through the writing that you're doing. It's really simple information that's being collected. I would say is like, this is not, it's not rocket science, what we're doing. What we're capturing is granular data that can be used to verify a user over time. And we're looking at key information. I actually don't need to know the person, that it can be done in a sense anonymously as a data processor. I don't know, we don't have student names unless it's coming in as an unstructured way. But otherwise, we're basically just using data to verify that this appears to be the same user as last time we checked this user's session. And we can do that consistently over time with as little as about 60 words each time. And the window can actually be smaller with larger data sets and with different approaches to corpus verification. So what's interesting, right? So is if now I can tie the user and I can tie how much of the writing is actually being performed by that particular user, right? So now I have AI currently doesn't use keyboards. So any generative text is basically, can be sequestered or kept separate, right? I can know this was generative AI and I can know this is key press information, right? So how much effort is being collected. I can verify authorship and identity verification of a user, but there's many other research domains that this data also could be leveraged for, right? So the value of this currently not collected data is very large. And mostly I think that the reason we are behind in collecting this information is the baggage that that it has been attributed to key logging in the past. If we think of it from a biometric standpoint, I think that one simplifies some of this, but also helps us to kind of have a path forward. You can also estimate the quality of writing based on behavioral aspects of the writing process. There's some really interesting things that we can do there. I think I'll have a slide that we can show based on a summer of research that we've done with a Hopkins graduate. You can measure some aspects of cognition. You can identify if people are stressed and kind of have markers for emotional health, well-being. You can also use this to screen for illnesses and some other things like that, where it's been shown to be pretty highly effective for showing for cognitive decline and for some other kind of cognitive or motor skills illnesses. This is one example. So it's like, if you think of the way that you're typing, there's all sorts of different features that you can extract from that data. And we're using a kind of time series data. Key log data is extremely amenable for feature development from a machine learning standpoint. So here's 11 kind of features that we can get from any quantity of writing. And we can use that against other external data sets to provide an estimate to an end user immediately on how good we think their writing is, right? So we can signal to a student potentially like when and if they need to go do more editing compared to a specific average or a specific norm. And this is where I think we're now rethinking writing in the age of AI. Is like, imagine if you had a non-LLM based, objective, quantifiable, intelligent tutoring system that's just based on kind of your activity as a writer. You could instantly know where you're at for any paper that you're doing, or whether you've spent too much time on it, not enough time. If, depending on longitudinally, how does your writing look compared to other writing that you've done? Similar to some pieces of information that Grammarly is giving you right now, I rely on like how much I've done compared to other people, how many errors I have compared to other people, which I'm always surprised how terrible I am at typing and how many errors I apparently am including. Comma splices are the death of me. And then, like kind of like the uniqueness in words, like think that times like hundreds of different potential features, but in ways that are explainable and actionable from a student perspective. So what we've created at Cursive basically is that we are, we created it's an API, right? So we created a way for people to connect and send us this information, and we can send a growing list of attributes and payload back that are based on feature extraction or running through our machine learning models. But because this information is not currently collected, we've also had to create collection tools. So we've done integrations natively to a couple of learning management systems. We've created a browser extension that students can use directly, but all under the auspices of trying to provide this level of data and granularity and insight about the writing practice so that we can literally rethink our relationship to writing and take a more effort-based approach to make sure that somebody was behind the keyboard doing this, right? It's not about copy pasting from a generative AI. It's not about clicking a magic button. If we want to know what students are capable of and what they know, we have to take a more proactive approach in collecting information from the actual writing process. I'm not saying that AI should not be allowed in writing. I actually think that AI should be taught, incorporated, required in some assignments so that students can understand what it is. But that gives us more flexibility as well to say, go get an essay from ChatGPT. I'll give you the prompt. But when you come and paste it into your learning management system or into your paper, what I'm looking for is a counterpoint. And we can highlight all the counterpoint, all the pieces that the student is able to insert and to use their critical thinking to modify, to correct, to improve upon the AI output. That's what we want to show to the teachers. I'm pretty sure that is the goal of teaching. That is the goal of identifying kind of the critical thinking or at least the humanness in the writing that's being submitted. That's the goal by leveraging a biometric. And also knowing that the student is actually doing the work. This is just a screenshot of our browser extension. In a sense, it's like personal analytics of your writing, right? We're trying to provide ways for you to share that information, to verify with third parties, like say, hey, here's all the info, here's my paper, but also here's a link that shows you my whole writing process, how long I spent on this. You can verify that it was me as the author as well. This is getting more into human verification rather than kind of like AI detection or anything like that. That is hopefully was maybe a little bit long, but that's my story. I'm going to stick to it.
No, you did a great job keeping this nice and tight. I mean, there were a number of comments in the chat. I'm not really sure. One that stuck out to me was someone was concerned that we were, in a sense, with this technology using this, it's almost a spyware used to counter cheating. How do you react to that?
Yeah, well, so I won't say that it's not, right? It is monitoring. It is a monitoring tool. It is capturing more information about this. But I think that from my perspective, I was responsible for the academic integrity of Straighterline, and we were regularly receiving kind of the way that you detect whether a student has not done the work, besides like plagiarism detection or something like that, would be that the person that they paid to do the paper didn't get paid, and they report the student directly, right? So it's extortion, right? And so I think that there is an element to that, and I am trying to solve a current and what I believe to be massive problem in academic integrity is that we don't know whether the student is actually doing the work and then submitting it, but we can know, and we can do so simply in ways that also have secondary, tertiary benefits to the student directly, that could help them to be better writers. And I think that I'm driven by those two things. One is I do want to solve this problem. There needs to be a shift in how we consider academic integrity related to writing. I think that the benefits largely outweigh. Now, that I'm not the only person in these discussions, and I want to be clear, is like the analytics about writing is hugely valuable. We do not have any of this information. We don't even collect how much time students are spending on this. The way that submissions are metered in logs of a learning management system, it basically is like 5 clicks to submit a .doc, whereas that's not sufficiently reflecting the level of effort that students are putting in for the work that they're submitting. There are many great tactics in terms of like scaffolding and other things like that. But when it comes to larger scale online courses, we're bereft of a lot of this information. I think would be valuable. That I know would be valuable as a firsthand when we were evaluating tens of thousands of essays on an annual basis.
Yeah, there's a couple of questions in here. One would be, looking for, someone was suggesting, Mian was suggesting, trying to solve the problem through the use of virtual reality. I'm not sure if that's a question. Certainly, Joe, you've hitched your wagon to the problem the way you're solving it.
Yep.
Did you consider that or look into that at all? Or
not to virtual reality. It's an interesting way. I would say that I would put that closer to like Viva's presentation based, more active kind of like, I'm going to show you my knowledge, but I'm going to show you right now, right? I'm going to go through an exercise like I just did over the last 20 minutes where I have to speak about this. I'm going to be grilled with questions. I have to kind of think through and have answers for these. It has to be largely something that's like takes a lot of practice to do. That's a great solution. I do not discount that. We used video a lot at Straighterline as well, is like to get that kind of first-hand presentation from a student so that we could evaluate in that way. Yeah, I see a question also related to privacy, data security, highest concerns for us. I would say is like that actually is I think is part of the transition to leveraging biometrics for ID verification has to be acutely aware of the sensitivity of this data and proving to other people and third parties that I'm a good steward of that information and that we've taken great pains to think through what information we collect, what do we do with that information, how we're destroying that information, how long we're keeping those. That's all part of the considerations. We're considering kind of a launch in Europe, and you can imagine the great pains and the consternation that I'm working through in order to make sure that we're adhering to all regional jurisdictional compliance responsibilities and anything related to that. But yeah, I totally agree that has to be of the highest importance.
so someone also
Joe,
mentioned go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, I had a question, Joe, which is, you're taking, biometric approach to solving the problem. Are you aware of, and I don't want to say that it's competition or anything, but are you aware of any other approaches to solving a problem like what you're trying to solve, but just using a completely different strategy that you think could also be promising, or maybe even promising enough to merge with that company and use both technologies?
Yeah, that's a great question. I do think that this is the most simple and elegant and has the most upside from a learning perspective. This data, I can't underscore how important I think it will be for helping students and teachers know more about the creation process and to help with writing skills development. That being said, there are other approaches. One is stylometrics, right? Linguistic analysis. We tend to, just how we type on a computer is a biometric signature, how you type in general. There are some characteristics in terms of transitions, word selection, sentence complexity, those things that are consistent across your writing. Famously, there were some machine learning scientists that were able to identify J.K. Rowling's pen name, right, by using some linguistic analysis of those. What I can say is that is similar to AI detection, those are easily defeated. I can ask ChatGPT, I can give it a sample of my writing, I can ask it to write like me, and it does actually a better job linguistically of even my writing for different audiences. That's one way. I've seen some others where for a submission upload, it will ask additional questions of students, or it will create like AI generated questions or force the student through like a viva, right? So they have to basically like answer questions about their paper that they've actually submitted. I would say is like, I actually am not, that works. That's a great solution. It can be done really effectively, but it's more overhead for the student, right? And it's like what I'm trying, I think that there is an opportunity here where students are already going through great effort to create their papers. I'm not looking to add more stress to the student. Is like that. I'm just looking to capture the effort that they are already expending, and then to leverage that to do the verification process. But there are some other, I think, promising places out there that we looked at a lot before we settled on typing biometrics, like less invasive ways to use cameras, cameras that were facing like the actual keyboard instead, using some other, but it's all, there are trade-offs to many of them. And what I like about typing biometrics is that everybody has a keyboard. It's one of the most ubiquitous tools out there. And it starts with you as a user. And if you start to understand that, I think it gives you more agency over the creation process. But there is no small market education process that needs to occur to get people comfortable with this type of approach, which that's also been fun.
So let me ask you this. I think of, when I'm watching what you're doing here, I think of George Mason University. I have a friend that taught an innovation class over there for a couple of semesters, and he had me come in and speak to the class each semester once. And a lot of those people are first generation born in America. English in a lot of cases is a second language. They learned while growing up here. And they're working jobs. They're really busy. He really respected and admired these students that he had in his class, but their writing was really bad. And I'm wondering, I mean, is this tailored? Is this even more helpful for someone like this, or would there be issues when you encounter someone whose writing is really disjointed? Their English writing is a problem. And how is this something that really is beneficial for a student like that? Someone who's exceedingly busy and they're struggling with just basic English because they've just been pushed through the system. And
it's a great question. I think that introduces some other problems in our kind of educational system also. So I don't want to say that this is a end all be all, solves all problems, right? It's like, from a academic integrity standpoint, I can tie the user to the writing. And in the case of a student, your example raises an interesting anecdote, which I often hear, is that many teachers, where they are confronted with students with low, with basically their ESL or their English language learners, their writing quality is low, often are encouraged to use ChatGPT and other solutions to improve the writing, because the gist of what they're putting out is accurate, but the quality of that writing is low, right? But if you can leverage AI, you can help the student to raise the bar. Now, I actually think that that's perfectly acceptable, is like, and that should probably be encouraged, because one of the benefits of AI is that low performance gets up to average, and then average also gets some increments, right? But high performance is basically they're not impacted. But what I want to make sure is that even the low performance students, we want to know that they are capable, and we want to know what they know. If AI policy in a specific class is amenable to allowing students who are to kind of leverage AI to do those things, you want to know that there's effort by the student. But that's not to say that we wouldn't allow, and we want to prevent students from creating good quality work, which would be required for their jobs subsequent to their graduation. And I think that the LLMs offer a really great opportunity for upskilling, but also like raising the bar with low effort for students who are still learning how to express their thoughts in English. So that's, I would say, is maybe that's a little bit capitulation, but hopefully that helps to clarify.
so let's try to do this. We like to respect people's time and try to get them out early, but we got a lot of questions. Let's go into a lightning round. Let me ask you questions and try to give super fast answers, because I want to make sure we address some of these questions that popped up. Someone asked about the key logging biometrics, the failure rate. Someone hurt their finger and they're suddenly typing a little different, or something happened.
Sure, yeah.
What's the failure rate on these?
So I would say I don't think of it as a failure rate, because what we have found is that once a student is of a sufficient typing skill, that the consistency of session by session comparison is something that they can control, right? So it's like, in a sense, it's like you have full agency over whether you are getting a green check using the system. You can also, as an individual, I can actually, I can feign injury, or I can type with one hand. I can take other things to create a false negative, right? So it's like I actually have full control over whether this is going to be verified or not verified. Now, teachers get all the access of the information of analytics and kind of the default information, which we hope will be beneficial in general to bring transparency and confidence back to the writing. But the student has to be a participant of this. And that is the major shift that I think that is part of my proposition, is that students must be central to this new way of thinking through integrity. If you think of AI usage by students today, detectors don't know, faculty don't know. Those are both proven by research. There's only one person in the equation that knows how much AI they're using, and that's the student. So preventing a student from using AI is not a winning scenario. But enlisting the student to take a strong stance against contract cheating could be the way that we're able to raise this bar significantly, solve a long-lasting problem, which is that we're not necessarily sure 100% of the students in our course are the people submitting those work. But I think that that's one of the opportunities here, is that it's not, we do have an opportunity to rethink this because of how AI has introduced this. And I would say is like we have a lot of opportunity to incorporate more AI into the curriculum and allow students to use AI in their writing experiences. But the way that we're talking about integrity, I think also there's a real great opportunity here where we are enlisting students. Somebody made a comment about, students want to they need to want to learn for this to work. 100% agree, right? And in my experience, many students do want to learn. Many students are just going through the motions as well, but where we allow for AI and where we incorporate those things, that can expedite the process for those students. What I want to be clear is like, the main thing where I'm trying to attack is that I want a one-to-one relationship between the enrolled student and the writing that's being submitted, or the writing that the student is responsible for. And I think that that's knowable through their effort.
And I would just like to add, Joe, that, and you pretty much said it, but in my career, when I've looked at failure rates of any technology, the question is, what is the failure rate versus the current best solution?
Right.
And if it's a human, I'm going to guess that this technology has lower failure rate than a human that's trying to determine whether or not an essay is human generated.
Yeah. I would say it's like the student has the student is in the driver's seat of whether this matches or not, right? So if it is biosignatures being spoofed, you'd have to spoofing a typing biometric could be pretty difficult. You'd have to track it. You'd have to have a way to kind of train against that. I'm not aware of ways to do it there. I'm aware of some obfuscation techniques that can be done and kind of the firmware of a computer, but nothing as yet. And in a sense, is like that becomes part of my challenge too. Is like it is academic integrity often is an arms race, but this significantly levels a new playing field for how we're looking at this information, mostly because it's just not collected currently. So I'm a fan of detection tools. They do work for some purposes, but this is a different approach.
Yeah, I'm going to apologize. We're certainly not going to get to every question. And Joe, it seems like you're looking at the chat. You see the comment here.
Trying to.
Yeah,
all right. Keep lightning strikes again. Let's go.
Yeah. So I think my concern is, as I mentioned before, it's a gray scale. It's not black and white. People are really busy. They get super busy and they got to finish a paper for a class. And so they cheat once because they want to get the paper in, just get through the class, and they won't do it again the following semester. But they're just exceedingly busy, or maybe they want to have fun much more than they want to focus on a particular paper. It's a challenge. Someone did mention that, they asked the question, could you generate an answer in AI and then simply type that into the system and fake it out in that sense? I'm assuming that's possible, correct?
It's possible to detect it. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's a great seminal paper that talked about whether we use biometrics for ID verification. A lot of fintech will use this as fraud detection, right? To make sure that somebody that's not you is accessing your account. And they were, in order to check that, they were saying, do we have to have the person that we're trying to verify, do they have to type something unique every time, or can we tell them what to type? And basically they said, those are actually the same. Both cases, we can identify the same user, whether it's transcription-based activity or if it's free text. But those are differentiable based on the different ways that they are kind of created, and a number of features come into play in terms of how those are identifiable. So we've invested a lot over the past 18 months in identifying copy behavior versus free text or kind of more academic writing. It is differentiable, but I also, in more simply, I could show you the playback, or I could tell teachers and give them a little bit of instruction to say, there's two things you're looking for in terms of like how to identify copy behavior. One is that if you see at the replay of the text and it looks pristine and it's just like unfolding like a unnaturally perfect paper, I would say it might be an opportunity for a question there. And then also is like that's why AI detection, I have mentioned those being ways to also do some of the detection. I'm not looking to replace all tools. I believe that this is a complementary and supplemental, but also providing a new base layer where we can get a lot more out of this. So hopefully that answers that question.
So I don't know if I missed this when you were presenting, but when someone submits a paper, does your AI sort of analyze it and present the professor with a sort of a snapshot of, these are the results we found. This is what, we're seeing in the student writing. And then it's human in the loop. The professor then takes those results and decides what to do and interacts with the student and reads the paper, correct?
Like every great academic integrity tool out there, I would say, is like we try to distance ourselves from making being the end all be all or the definitive, like it is this thing that you're seeing. But we have a growing amount of information that we provide to the teacher as context, whether that's to spark a conversation or to facilitate kind of more investigation into it, or to make cause for event of running it through a detection tool. But right now is like 100% of most submissions are run through detection tools additionally. So this is a way to, one, you might not have to run it through. If you have a great level of confidence in the student writing, you can see the playback feature, you can see kind of the editing process that students have done, you can see how much time they spent on it. Those are all great markers for building confidence in student writing, versus me just saying it's 99% likely or it's 1% likely or something like that.
Okay, Joe, thank you so much. I want to make sure we wrap up with a little time to spare for people so they can get prepared for their 1 o'clock meeting if they have one. And thanks for all the questions. I'm sorry we couldn't answer everything, so I apologize for that here. We wanted to just show a sampling of some of the classes that are coming soon from the Center for AI, Applied AI. These are some things that are being offered in September and August. Things like AI for Leaders, Foundations of Modern AI. There's this introduction to this terrain AI framework. It's a agile AI framework for project management. So you can certainly scan the QR code and land on our site. You can put in the discount code that we have here. Anybody that attends the lunchbox can get a 10% discount for the class. Also, save the dates. The next lunchbox webinar is going to be 2 weeks from today. It's going to be on the 22nd. And we're basically going to be talking about presenting sort of the results of our survey of deepfake detection technologies. And so when we mention deepfake, we're talking about audio, image, and video fakes. And we sort of surveyed the landscape of what's out there and got a sense for how things perform, how available they are, what are the costs. So we're going to present on that on the 22nd. And then we're having our third technical meetup, our in-person meetup at our facility in Columbia on the 29th. And at that, we're going to have a few people from our lab, our C4 AI lab, talking about some of the projects they've been working on. So that should be a good one to attend. And we've got the QR code in here. If you want to scan that and register, you can do that as well. So also, if you just want to contact us, we're certainly eager to get feedback about these webinars. We're probably going to develop some sort of a questionnaire. We want to make sure we're running these things in a way that's most beneficial to people who attend. And we also want to just talk to you about your organization. If you have some issues and need some help from us, so you can contact us at info@c4ai.ai. And again, feel free to join the Slack community, dive in and start cross-pollinating with us. So that concludes the webinar. We appreciate you again, Joe, for what you did. Thanks everybody for joining us. Have a great day, and we'll see you the next time.
Thank you, Joe.